All right, welcome to 2.3, Part B, dividing decimals. This would be going along with the 9th video in your summer packet if you need a quick refresher. All right, but I'll refresh your memory right here. You are going to rewrite these division problems so that it's set up for long division, good times. Remember, the first number is placed inside the bracket, that's the dividend, and the second number is placed on the outside, that's your divisor. It's like a superhero. Step 2, if the divisor is not a whole number, you're going to move the decimal point to the right in order to make it a whole number, and then you need to move the decimal point in the dividend as well, the same number of places. You're going to divide as usual. Keep dividing until the quotient either terminates or repeats. Put the decimal directly above the decimal point in the dividend. If the signs are the same, just like your integer division rules, if the signs are the same, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. Just like we did with multiplication, we're going to estimate ahead of time whether the answer will be positive or negative, and then ignore those signs when we go through and do the process. And as always, you should be using estimation to see if your answer makes sense. All right, so let's do our first example where we have a negative 7/500 being divided by 25. So we are going to take 7/500 and divide it by 25. Looking through your steps, you can see that there is no decimal in our divisor, so we don't need to change anything there. We're going ahead and move the decimal point straight up. I like to do that first so I know where that's going to go. 25 doesn't go into 7. We do need to put a number or a digit above each digit in the dividend, so I need to put that 0 there. It's very important. 25 does not go into 7, but it does go into 75 3 times, happens to equal exactly 75, which means leaves me with no remainder. So I have 3 hundredths for an answer. Look at the original problem. I had a negative and a positive, which means my answer should be a negative. So I'm just going to end up with a negative 3 hundredths. All right, let's look at our next one. We have 13 3/10 being divided by a negative 1 9/10. So again, I have one of each, so my answer is definitely going to be negative. All right, so we are going to take our 13 3/10 and divide it by 1 9/10. Okay, here's where we're going to have to say, okay, I don't want to deal with dividing by 1.9. I want to move this decimal point to the right in order to make a 19, which is a whole number. If I did that, I have to do the exact same thing to my dividend. So I'm going to rewrite this because that's looking a little messy. So I'm going to instead be taking 133 and dividing by 19. So I can't imagine you know your 19s very well. Use some estimation. I'm going to let you off the hook and say, miraculously, 19 times 7 is exactly 133. And we end up with no remainder. Notice there's no decimal point at all in this problem now. So 13 3/10 divided by a negative 1 9/10, we knew was going to be negative, and it happens to just be a plain old 7. So my answer is negative 7. All right, last one. We have a negative 16 8/10 being divided by 4 8/10. So again, one of each, which means we're definitely going to have a negative answer. So I'm off the hook there, don't need to worry about the positive and negatives anymore. So I'm going to take 16 8/10 and divide it by 4 8/10. I want to get rid of those decimal points, or at least turn this one into a whole number. So I'm going to move this over one digit, do the same thing here. So I'm going to rewrite this. So I have 168 being divided by 48. All right, so I need to figure out 48 definitely won't go into 1. It won't go into 16. I want to figure out about how many times 48 is going to go into 8. So use, some common sense and estimation. You might say, oh, well, I know 4 times 4 makes 16, so 40 times 4 would be about 160. So that's going to be a little too big. So let's try 48 times 3. That's 24. This gives me 144. And I think that's going to be my winner. So I'm going to put a 3 up here. That's 144. Subtract 8 minus 4, 6 minus 4. All right, I can't just go ahead and call this 24/48 now. We're dealing with decimals. So what do you do when you have a remainder and you're dealing with decimals? You add on decimal points and bring it straight up and bring down your 0. I'm going to go ahead and try to put 48 into 240, and I will tell you that 48 times, we said 40 times 4 would be about 160. That'd be a little too small. Let's try 48 times 5. And some of you might have picked up already when I said the thing about 24/48. That may have already triggered, like, oh, that's a half. That may have been a clue to you right there. This turns out to be 8 times 5, 4, 240. Oh my gosh, it's exactly 240. How did that happen? Oh my god. Okay. 48 goes into 245 times, which equals 240 with no remainder. And we said right off the bat it was going to be a negative, so my answer is a -3 and 5/10. See you tomorrow.